Today it is April 23rd, and we're back for our weekly Q&A session. I thought I might start off the day by talking about a few things, but also sharing what's coming up. What's coming up is a masterclass on Monday for anyone that is interested. You can find that on my website. It's a pay what you can masterclass, so anybody is invited on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. You can figure out the corresponding times from there. But what's up, Blazam? Hello, Pro. We're going to be having that, but I was going to, in that masterclass, we're going to be talking about jazz improvisation from the beginning. So we're going to go ahead and use all of me as kind of a jumping off point for that masterclass on Monday. But today I thought while people are joining up and while people are getting here onto the stream, I thought I would go ahead and play a little bit before people are getting in. People are dropping in their questions. And so we're going to just kind of preview what's coming up on Monday with that. So I'll just do a little playing here, a little bit of all of me in your favorite pandemic mode, all by myself. Favorite pandemic mode. Okay, so. All right. Thanks for indulging me on a little playing there for this Friday. What's up, DJ? What's up, Reese's, Dano, Luke, Casey? How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. Elliot, thanks for being here. Okay, so let's get rid of this, and let's get into some questions and answers here. I see some from Twitch and YouTube and more Twitch. What's happening, Anthony? Thanks for being here. Get some claps there. Taylor, thanks for being here. Sky Pilot, hello. So feel free to drop in any questions. Again, we're doing a masterclass on Monday. It's for all instruments and for whoever wants to, Monday evening, 6 p.m. My time, Eastern time, and then 5 p.m. Central. So we hope that you can join us. It's a pay what you can, so any amount is fine. That's Monday. Okay. Diego is putting some All of Me lyrics on here. Very nice. Very cool. Let's see. So I have some questions. Let's jump into the questions here. I got first from YouTube, from Taylor Hatch. What's up, Taylor? Do you have any funny moment or moments that happened to you on a gig? Probably. Should probably turn this microphone on so you can hear me on Instagram. Let's see. Any funny moments on a gig? Probably. There's definitely funny moments on gigs. I mean, the thing that happens over and over again to me is, I'll show you. This happens over and over and over to me on gigs. That now that I used to have a Yamaha, like a big silent brass, right? And it's been years since I switched to like having a small one. This one is a Okura mute, but like I haven't gone a month probably, or like any tour. Like at some point I will inevitably play with this in the bell, and I feel like everybody does. You go start the first note of the show and you're like, oh crap, this is still in my slide, still in my bell. That happens constantly, so much so that it's really quite annoying when it happens, because I'm like, really? Again? I did that again? But yeah. Sky Pilot has a question from Instagram. He says, one question: I want to learn to play my MIDI electric sax better, but can't read the saxophone scale yet. Well, you should definitely learn how to read music. So you should figure that out. I don't play saxophone, and I also don't play the MIDI controller. So I actually probably am not the best person to help you with that. There's some really great people out there that are doing stuff, like Chad Lefkowitz Brown's playing a lot of Iwi, or he was at one point, and but even another person, Chase Baird, who plays with Antonio Sanchez and some other people. We were at Juilliard together. Chase is a great saxophonist, and he has a lot of chops with the synthesizer stuff and with the Iwi in particular. So I might go that way. What's up, Kelson? Let's see. Okay, so other questions, feel free to drop them in as we go here. If you saw in the description box, if you're on YouTube and Facebook, we're still open for registration for our Jazz Trombone Bootcamp this year, June 14 through 18. I'm excited about that. We're going to be able to accommodate even more people this year, which is exciting because we have a couple different price tiers of attending. So I hope you can check that out. You can check out that link. And Brian has Desert Island instrument, trombone or piano? Oh man, I guess that's a hard question. Desert Island instrument, trombone or piano? I can't have both, huh? I mean, I'm fine with either one really, but I mean, piano would be probably more interesting in the long term, but I would also be okay with trombone. Here's a question. DJ, I see your question also. From Blake. Do you think electronic trombone will ever exist? And I think what you're talking about is like an Iwi version of trombone. There's like plenty of people, including myself, that have delved into electronics with trombone, like turning it into, but there's also a new, well, I don't know if it's still, I ran across it on Instagram sometime over the pandemic. There's actually a microphone that will convert things into MIDI. So if you take that and play the trombone into that microphone, it should theoretically turn it into a MIDI signal. So I think that, yes, it does exist. You just have to be creative. There's not like an EWI in the same way, but that thing turns into MIDI, your signal into MIDI, and then that MIDI can go into a synthesizer, and the synthesizer can output the MIDI. So there's also some pedals, an electro-harmonics synth pedal, and there's a POG pedal, and there's some other pedals you can use to make it sound like a synthesizer. So the deeper you get into it, the more you can do. I'm not like the expert on pedals and stuff like that. I've delved into it a little bit, but you can do it. You can do it. So Anthony, thank you for your comment, but it's definitely possible. All right, thoughts on Charles Mingus? I love Charles Mingus. I think he's a pioneer of just doing your own thing, you know, like in an era where a lot of guys were kind of following in the footsteps of others and, you know, playing bebop. He was doing his thing. So, and he's not afraid to like play weird notes. He's not afraid to assert his opinion and be political. And I aspire to be more rough around the edges like that, you know, to me, irregardless of his personality or his, you know, personal failings, as we all have, you know. All right, I see these questions on YouTube, but I'm going to get this one on Instagram before it disappears. Let's see. When you first got started leading your own band, did you ever have trouble dealing with musicians who didn't respect you? Did you try to make those relationships work? Yeah, I think it's important. That's a really good question, DJ. This is just one opinion. But I think there's a balance there between knowing what you're doing for them and what they're doing for you. I think at the beginning, I always thought of it as the band is doing me a favor, and I need to go out of my way, regardless of what I can afford, to one, pay them as much as I can, give them as much leeway as I can, and to be as, you know, courteous and grateful as I can. Although it's definitely a challenge when you have, you know, those things like, oh, they either disrespect you or not disrespect you isn't really even the right way to put it. I guess it's more like, you know, they're just like, oh, I'm just doing this guy a favor, you know. So as you move along the spectrum, the more you can pay, the more you can demand of the band that you're working with, whether they're your friends or not, you know. There's always going to be kind of a blurry line between social and business in music. That's just the nature of it, and it can be tricky. You know, I think, at least in my experience, what I would say is, as long as you are clear of expectations kind of upfront, you know, like that generally will kind of make all the problems a little less. Like as long as you are upfront about, you know, all the details, what it pays, what the expectations are, what the time expectations are. Like, you know, one thing that happens sometimes that's pretty annoying is you agree to do like, and it's nothing against a friend or anything like that. It's just a situation that becomes hard, is like, if you book a gig, for example, but when you book the gig, you don't book the rehearsals at the same time, or even express that you want to rehearse. And then 2-3 weeks later, you come back, you're like, okay, we need to book 3 rehearsals. And then you try, and then everyone in the band is like, you know, I'm already giving you the time for free of playing this gig because I like you and I want to support your music and all this kind of thing. So there's a balance there of just like, as long as you can be upfront from the beginning. If you aren't clear in the beginning and then you get in a hairy situation, I don't know how to come back from that other than just making the best of it, I think. But yeah, so that's a little bit tricky, but I think as clear as you can be upfront with how you're going to handle a situation is the best way forward, I think, in terms of being able to make sure that your band wants to work for you and just letting them know that they're appreciated, you know. That's all you can do at a certain point, is letting them know how much you appreciate them. Okay, I saw a bunch of questions here. I'm going to go backward. All right, I see a bunch of your questions here, Taylor. I'm going to go to Jackson, and then I'll come back to you. What does your menu look like for your meals while on tour? What do you like to eat that also keeps you sustained tour long? That's an interesting question. So about actually it's got to be longer now. About 5 years ago, I discovered that every time I would go on tour, I would gain a lot of weight. And just because when you're on tour, like there's not as many healthy options. Usually the green room is filled with snacks and candy and blah, 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 blah. And so as I've gotten older, I've realized, what foods kind of trigger my body to like store more fat and blah, 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 blah. But, and so I started intermittent fasting like 5 years ago because I knew that I couldn't control what was going to be available at the venue, for example, but I could control, when I was going to eat, so I would tend to do that, meaning do this intermittent fasting thing. So I won't eat until 4 o'clock or something like that. And then eat before the gig, maybe a snack after the gig, and then don't eat again until the next day around 4 o'clock. So, and for me, that worked okay. As for other people, it doesn't work super well, and it's hard. They don't like the fasting thing, but there's a lot of research around fasting, and I've just now at this point, I've been doing it for a long time, so I don't even think about it much. So my menu looks like whatever's around, there's not a lot to do. But back in 2009, 2008 even, I kind of started trying to change my own decisions about food and eating, and kind of cut out all the things that I had been eating. Like there was a Wendy's in between Eastman and my apartment, and that was a frequent stop until then. And then at that point, I decided no more fast food, no more soda, and a few other things, and I just cut it all out and went on a journey there. And I was a lot heavier when I was at Eastman than I am now. So I just try to keep it up and eat as healthy as I can on the road, but there's nothing specific. There was a period where I ate a lot of Cliff bars, and I realized how much sugar are in the Cliff bars. And then I switched to RX bars, and then that wasn't that much better. So I have, I just do the intermittent fasting thing. Taylor, if there was anything you could tell your younger self before you started gigging professionally, what would you say? It doesn't matter so much. I would get stressed about everything, every gig, being on time, being there early. All those things are good, but like if I had just come at it with a more relaxed angle, I would have enjoyed it more. Especially now looking back, there's so much stuff that I didn't enjoy because I was just running from place to place and not appreciating what was going on. And I specifically can say that I remember thinking in certain locations like, oh, I'll be back here again. I don't need to go do X, Y, Z, or I can stay here and just work on this, or I don't need to go out and meet this person. I'll be back here. But no, you don't know, If anything, the last year has taught us it could be that in particular. So that is what I would tell myself. Chill out. Favorite Wycliffe Gordon jazz composition? Oh, original Wycliffe Gordon tune? I'm going to be selfish and just say he wrote a couple tunes for me, so I'll say those. There's one called The Nick of Time. I like that one. That's not really probably my favorite, but it is one. Favorite jazz slang term? I'll just say the ones I use a lot. Cats is something I say a lot. Cats. I used to say things were out a lot. I don't say that as much anymore. Like, oh, that's out. Like, that's not cool. That's not happening. All right, scrolling down here. Is there a location you haven't toured yet that you'd love to? I still haven't gone to Japan. I was supposed to go to Japan last summer, and Japan is high up on my list of where I'd like to go, but I haven't gone, and I would love to get back. The Trombone Festival was supposed to be there, and then it got canceled because of COVID. So yeah, that's number one. Here you go, Misty. How do you keep clarity and speed in the high range? By playing the same sort of stuff you play in the mid range and the high range until it's comfortable. Most of the time that means adjusting your articulation and to a like more E or I based syllable, like T T T T T T T T T T T T. Like if you just sing into that upper register, you go from ah to E, right? I so anyway, so you got to make sure that you're playing with the right vowel sound. That's a very quick fix. If you haven't thought about vowel sounds, it's a very long fix, but if you do think about vowel sounds when you play, that's an easy way to get the compression inside of your mouth and the airflow faster so that you can articulate and play into the upper register. Yeah. Oh, Drew says out too. I used to say it more. When do you use A flat in first, if ever? The only time I use it is if I'm playing a transcription and that person happened to play A flat in first. Curtis does that sometimes. And I also do it when I want it to be a blue note. And JJ does it sometimes too, when it's a blue note, like in a B flat blues, for example, or in an F blues. You can play that, you know, play up there like. But otherwise, it's just too flat, you know. Otherwise, you know, that was one of my teachers. His pet peeves is if I would play an A flat in first, and so now it's one of my pet peeves, and I take it out on my students. So sorry, guys. But I mean, it has definitely a vibe, you know. That first position has a vibe. You got to use it. If you play it like trying to play in tune with another person, you're never gonna. It's not gonna work. But if you're playing it as a flavor, you know. Vibe, then it's cool. Vibe. There's another one. Another jazz slang. What's up, Alton? Hope you're doing well. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. I see more questions scrolling back here. Feel free to drop them in if you have other ones. Let's see. Did I miss any on Instagram? Kind of going back here. Let's see. Not yet. Okay. Cool. Jack. This is, again, Jack is asking me these questions week after week. You've been given a grant to assemble the Nick Finzer Dream Big Band. Assume it's for millions of dollars for anyone in the world, and they will say yes. Oh, gosh. Okay. So my default is always usually to call my friends, right? So I'm going to try to not do that in this dream band scenario here. And since my big band would likely play a variety of music, it would probably not like just be like a repertoire big band. Yeah, Alton. You know, you got to take a breath sometimes. That's funny. Okay, so there's the question again. Assuming that like my big band probably isn't going to play like rep, you know, it's going to be arrangements by people in the band or like my tunes and stuff like that. I would have to call a person. I'm thinking of the rhythm section first, so it would be people that can play like strong in a small group as well as in a big band, and so yeah, they got to have both sensibilities for sure and be great soloists. So that's something. Okay, so I think I would call, even though he's not maybe known as a big band drummer, I think I would try to call Eric Harland first. And if he couldn't do it, I mean, Jimmy McBride, who's my go-to drummer, would also do a great job. But I would say I would maybe call Eric Harland. If I couldn't get Eric, maybe Ulysses Owens Jr. and then Jimmy. Any of those would be fine. I could also maybe call Carl Allen. He's still playing lots of gigs. But okay, so I'm not gonna try to hedge my answer. So okay, so Eric Harland on bass. Then since they play together a lot, I would then say Dave Holland, who I know you love, Jack. And then piano. You know, that's a really good question, piano, because a piano in a big band has to be somebody that can also comp really well. See, I would ask Herbie. I don't think he would do it because Herbie is probably like one of my favorite living pianists, and you know, he's just a legend. But if I had to be a slightly more practical, you know, it would be cool to get somebody like Kenny Barron, but I don't know if he would fit like some of like more modern stuff, or if something had like a synthesizer too. I've always loved like Aaron Parks is playing, but I've never heard him play in a big band. So who would I pick? I don't know. One of those guys. Guitar. Lionel Lueke. So it's basically becoming like a mixture of like a dream band that I would have and a dream band that for like a small group and a big band, and then also a dream band of big band. This is really hard, Jack. There's a lot of people to list here. All right. So, trombone section. So Jack, you got to clarify one thing. Am I playing in the band too, or am I just conducting? I got to know that. So I got to know whether I need 3 or 4 trombone players. So Trenton's going to play piano. Wonderful. Okay, trombone section, because that's a good place to start. All-star trombone section. Okay, let's see. We got to have Marshall, right? You got to have Michael Deese, I think. You got to have Steve Davis. You got to have somebody like Jeff Nelson or Jennifer Wharton or Doug Proviance playing bass trombone. Somebody that can really do it. You know, Jeff Nelson is powerhouse. So I guess I would say, yeah. Oh, okay. And also, yeah, and that's what I was thinking. Aziza. Yeah, I know. Okay, so I'll quickly try to get through the rest of this. So trombones and then trumpets. Man, I don't know about trumpets. I would have to have probably Phil Dezak in there. As like a solo chair, but he told me he doesn't want to play in a big band, so he'll probably tell me no. But a great lead trumpet player like Tony Cadlick. I love Nadia Nordhaus's playing, so I would ask her. Again, now we're getting to mixing friends and people, and then somebody like totally different, probably like maybe Ambrose, someone that could like offer like a kind of different vibe would be good. And then in the tenor chairs, I would ask Lucas Pino, because I think he's good and he plays bass clarinet. And so an essential part of my big band would be that the tenor players both have to double on bass clarinet, which leaves less people. So the second person would have to be probably Chris Potter, because he also plays bass clarinet. It could be Seamus Blake, or it could be John Ellis. Sorry, I don't know why I was blanking on his name. And then, okay, alto saxophone. We have to be somebody that can double really well. I think like Ted Nash would be one person, but then you want somebody else that has like a contrast, plays like more soulful, with like a great sound, you know. So who would I pick on alto? You know, somebody like a Kenny Garrett. Let's say Kenny Garrett. He can also be in the big band. And then on Barry, somebody that also plays bass clarinet and has a really good sound. My buddy Andrew Gutauskas is really great, and he plays bass clarinet. So there we go. Okay, that was a really long. Okay, Steve Wilson. See, I can't do this. This is too hard of a question. Sorry, Jack. What's up, Trevor? What's up, Trombone Trev? Oh, he says, so much jazz combo recently got hired for a house band gig. The owner hired us to play straight ahead material, but the crowd requests us to play R&B. Should we keep our brand or play to the venue? Well, maybe the owner doesn't understand that what he wanted was R&B. You might ask him, you know. You might ask him what he wants. As you're like, if you're the house band, you know, if it's my band doing my music, then I would play my stuff, what I want to play. If I was hired to run a house band for a purpose, I would try to make sure that the purpose is being fulfilled. So if that purpose is playing R&B, if that purpose is playing funk, if that purpose is to play straight ahead or Latin, whatever it is, you know. So that's how I would think about it, is like, is this my gig to do my thing, or is this a gig to do what somebody else is paying me to do, you know? For example, that example of that place. You should change your Instagram to Nick Finzer. Ha, ha, ha. Okay. Let's see. I saw a lot more questions over here, so I'll go back. Yep. Trenton is going to play piano. Very good. Taylor, is there anything about jazz education that you think is missing in most curriculums? Do you think big bands will be the lasting ensemble in all schools? Ooh, good question. No, I don't think that big bands are going to stand the test of time. There are hardly any big bands that that work that much. I think medium-sized ensembles, creatively instrumented. That's not how you word that, but creatively orchestrated pieces, things that are like ensembles, crossover between jazz and classical, maybe even jazz, classical, and pop music, like all that kind of stuff. I think large ensembles are most likely, you know, an institutional thing that'll stay, but I don't think it's necessarily, quote unquote, the future. I think if you like hear music in that way, but otherwise I think like it's more interesting if you have a large ensemble that's the instrumentation that you hear. That's 10 horns or 12 horns or 100 horns, whatever it is. But like, I don't think, I mean, it's a good jumping off point, I think. And other things that I think are missing in most curriculums are practical like project-based assignments. I think that it's silly that we have only one recital. There's a lot of practical considerations that throw these ideas out the window. I'll just say that, like when you get into the actual running of a program or you're involved in a program, that like just because I say like, oh, this would be a great idea, does not mean that it's necessarily that feasible. So I'm going to say that I'm not including feasibility in these ideas. So my thought is that you want to be doing projects, having more than one recital, focusing on getting out and playing as much as you can. A lot of that stuff is missing, and it becomes encapsulated, on the campus, and it becomes encapsulated into like, this is my class and this is what I got to play for class, so that's a struggle. Room for creativity. I go back and forth on this. Like, people want to talk about like how specific should you be in teaching improv class, of like, should I show you language? Should I make you go get the language on your own? Should I tell you what language to play? Should you emulate the players that you love? Should you emulate the players that I like? And I think ultimately it has to be a mixture of a lot of things. But like, am I trying to train you to be a musician that can do all things? Am I trying to train you to be an artist that sounds like yourself? You know what I mean? Like, there's different people who have different goals. So ultimately it's really difficult to create a curriculum that accounts for all the different types of people that are going to come through a program and are going to, what they need. And that's how you end up with kind of like sometimes a vanilla kind of middle of the road approach, which focuses on, traditional jazz standards and 40s, 50s, maybe some 60s, 1940s, 50s, 60s repertoire. Some people go backwards. Some people want to go forward. I think it's important to make, my theory about it is that you have to, as your own person, decide like where your strengths are and where your interests are, and kind of double down on those, in addition to being informed about the rest of it. So I wouldn't say like I'm an expert about traditional jazz in the way that Trenton, who's on this stream here, is like, has a band that plays trad jazz. Like, I would not do that because I don't have expertise in that area, but enough so that like him and I can have lessons. And we did it this semester. He was working on Jack Teagarden, and at least we can talk about it and say like, oh, he does this is interesting, point out like the different things about it, the different stylistic things. So, just because you're not a practitioner of that thing doesn't mean you can't know about it. So my theory is that you should know about it all. You don't have to play it all, but you should know about, all the different parts of jazz history and be able to function in those things. I don't know. So I'm getting off the question here. But at any rate, those are some things, some ideas there. Hopefully that helps. Brian, has your band ever had to stop in the middle of a piece, either when you were a sideman or a leader? Has your band ever had to stop? I mean, sometimes you count it off and it doesn't count off right and you just start again. So yes. There was my band likes to talk about this incident. One of the first gigs that we did was, it would have been in 2010 or 2011 when I first got my band together in New York. We played at this little club called Something Jazz Club, and now it was called Miles Cafe, and now it's, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Yes, Trenton, we learned together. That's right. We did some Jack Teagarden and some other stuff. So on that gig, it was like the first time we had a gig, and I brought in all new music. We rehearsed one time, we got there, and like, there was, they like to bring this up to me, and they still say it to me, because like we got into a solo section that was like supposed to be cued, and I cued it and it didn't happen. And then I just like yelled, I was like, do something. And they like to bring that up to me still 10 years later. But anyway, I don't know. Yeah. But so yes, we've stopped before. If something doesn't go right, especially if it's a live recording, there's no shame if it's like the wrong tempo and it's just going to be bad. Just stop and start again. I don't know. I'd rather the music be good than you like protect your ego about like, oh, it's the wrong tempo. We're going to play this whole song at the wrong tempo. because I've done that too, and that sucks. Okay, so Mitchell has a question. Thanks for being here, Mitchell. You're taking a deep dive into Benny. Okay, just curious because I've seen you. Yes, we've played together. Any stories of working together? I mean, yeah, we played a lot of different kind of gigs together. We've played at Smalls, we've played at different big bands and different recording sessions, and ones where he's like singing out front and playing in the section. Played at 54 Below, Charlie Rosen's big band, which became the 8-bit big band. Yeah, I don't have any particular stories, I will say like the personality he has on Instagram is like the same as what he is in real life, He's like got a big personality, man. Great trumpet player, very supernatural, No stopping the Nick Finzer Dree Band. There you go. Now, I mean, I also trust the musicians to work it out. Like if something's a problem, I feel like if you hire the right people, they're going to work it out. And everybody has to be a little bit egoless in that you're like, if it's something is wrong and you're like, no, here's the top. We just agree that that's fine. And you make it work. I think that's how it goes. I mean, things happen, I'm also not like a stickler for perfection. I'd rather hear musicality and vibe and interaction and risk-taking. All that stuff is more important to me than studio perfection or even real-life gig perfection. If you want to hear that, you can go listen to other people that are that's more their focus. Okay, let's see. I missed some questions. Sorry if I missed you. Oh, Nick Rolls. If you could play another instrument, If you could play another instrument as well as you play trombone, what instrument would you play and why? Man, I like bass and I like drums. I like piano. I would play a rhythm section instrument. One, like drums is just, you drive the band. And bass, like, you control a lot of stuff from the bass chair, I think it would be bass, Piano seems just too hard to really be masterful of. But if we're saying that I'm automatically just as good as at the piano as I am at trombone, then I guess I could say piano also. I don't know. Rhythm section instrument, for sure. And I've known a lot of trombone players that play good bass, so I love they play good piano too. So I don't know. That's on my list, man. I got a bass right over there, but I never play it. I thought if I bought one and put it on the wall that I would play it. It wasn't correct. My assumption was not correct that I would be as dedicated as I thought I would be. But what are you going to do? All right, Brian has another question. Let's see. When deep diving into someone's albums, in what order would you listen to their albums? First album to last album, most influential albums to most obscure? I don't know if there's a right answer to that, but what would I do? I would start with whatever I had, and then I would dig back through a discography probably and go chronologically and hear from wherever I started, kind of work backwards and forwards from there. And then it will take some work to find the more obscure ones, because you're going to talk to people and they'll be like, oh yeah, this person, she actually played on this record, and then you didn't even know. So I think that's how it kind of goes out like a web, and that's why, in our fundamentals class, one of the first things we talk about is keeping a listening journal and writing stuff down, so you can know like, oh yeah, I did check that out. Like I did remember like these people are on it and it's on this label and I can find it, because sometimes things come down off of YouTube or get taken down off streaming. And if you want to be able to find things again, like sometimes you got to keep that log. So that's what we talk about. Like one of the first classes is like, how do we keep a listening log? What's an important stuff to write down? What are we trying to get out of the recordings? What did you like about it? That kind of stuff. Especially if you're doing like an actual deep dive for an educational purpose. The curse of every trombonist to envy the instruments that get more gigs. There you go. Jackson, as a student, what were your favorite things to work on and shed once the school year and commitments were complete? My favorite things to work on. What did I work on? I kind of always had like a mission of some sort in between every school year. Like I was going to get better at a specific thing. One year it was to play through the Omnibook. That was one year, one summer. because a great trombonist named Charlie Halloran, who is now in New Orleans and plays mostly trad stuff, he was a master student. And in between his first 2 years, he did that exact thing. And I was like, dude, you sound so good. Like, what did you do over the summer? And he's like, oh, I just played through the Omnibook. It makes you know what jazz is supposed to sound like. And then you can just play like that. So that to say, like, one summer I played through that. One summer it was trying to figure out how to learn tunes by ear, like I've said before, like I threw away my real books. Like that was in the summer, that was like during grad school, during the summer, like throw them away, just get rid of them and just go for it. Learning everything by ear for gigs, for everything. The summer after I graduated from undergrad, it was like, I'm going to get this tape together for Juilliard. That was one thing. Like I've always had like a mission, like some kind of project over the summer, as a student, when I was a student. And then when I got done, it was like, oh, let me go back through all the stuff that I never got to. And it was usually like little devices, little patterns, things that I wanted to, be able to implement into my playing. So it's changed over the years, but, it was always like, sometimes it was like open shapes, or sometimes it was, triads, or sometimes it was triads with a flat 2 or triads with a flat 6, or any of these little shapes that, I know Jackson, we've talked about some of them in lessons, but anyway, here we go. Trombone Hub. Something Jazz Club. It closed around 2014-15. Richard Bona opened his club, Bonafide. Oh yeah. So now it was Bonafide, but that was the place. That was the place. It was it was Miles Cafe first, and then something, and now Club Bonafide. Although I don't even know if it's still open. Hopefully they can reopen, but thanks for that, Trombone Hub. Appreciate that clarification. Brian, so are there any musicians whose biographies you've read? Yeah, I've read a bunch of them. Herbie's I've read, Miles's I've read, Quincy Jones. I really was inspired by Quincy Jones's. And the Monk one, that one's a real challenge, but I really was inspired by that one too. There's a lot of context in there about him, his music, and just the scene, like the jazz scene and how it kind of developed. And so to me, that was super interesting and super interesting and super eye-opening about like the practicalities of like things that we think are different that aren't, or like that jazz used to be more popular, but it's like I think it's always been a struggle since the 40s when it became non-dance music, like, so like this ongoing problem has happened for a while. Not necessarily saying it's a problem, but just saying like, the challenge of playing music that's more for the sake of art than the sake of like dancing is an ongoing challenge. And so anyway, those ones I liked. Duke Ellington's biography is good too. So anyway, those are some. Let's see. I think I've missed some questions here. Let me scroll back. Thanks for joining us today. If you're just joining, it's April 23rd. If you haven't signed up for the boot camp, we'd love to have you. That's Monday through Friday, the 14th through the 18th of June, with Andre Hayward, with Vince Gardner, with Michael Davis, with Steve Davis. It's going to be a lot of fun. Here's a question. Brian, so do you think your teaching gig will be your job for life? I don't know about that. There's a lot of things you want to do in your life, but I enjoy it for now. That's funny. Let's see. Yeah, Emmett. Yeah, Emmett's great. Also, Emmett Cohen, if you don't know Emmett. He also has a great white piano on the cover of his latest album, which I thought was funny. Okay, so I think we're caught up. Let me check on Instagram to see what I missed. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in. I think I've got them all so far. But yeah, a lot of great questions today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and offering those. Always is helpful to hear what other people are thinking about and what other people are working on and what other challenges people are having. Trenton says, if you had a child one day, would you hope that they took on the musician's life? I don't know. Not necessarily. It's only one path, you know? It's only one path, and I don't know that it's not for everybody, you know? I would want them to do what they want to do, not what I want to do. You know? It's not about me in that sense. So, all right. I think I'm going to wrap it up for today, and we'll be back. Will we be back next week? Yeah, for sure. Oh, wow. Okay. As soon as I say there's not any questions here, they come flying in. Thank you for these. Let's see. Let me get to these before we sign off, I guess. Brian, is a true slide. Hampton played on a straight bass trombone. When he came to Eastman, when I was an undergrad, he did, yes. I don't think his language is any different between tenor or bass. I think he plays straight up like bebop all the time, whether it's on tenor or straight bass. I don't think it's any different. John. Hi, John. Thanks for tuning in. He says, how do you personally divide your practice time between studying harmony and its application in 12 keys, separate from working on harmony within specific tunes you might be learning? Okay, so I would try to isolate those things that you're talking about playing in 12 keys in tunes so that you can work on tunes that have those things in them, because working on just like isolated like 2/5 patterns or like sequences, to me is not a thing that's very musical. So practicing stuff outside of a musical context is really hard for me, and I don't like to do it. And I would imagine that's the same for others. So like if you're just like, oh, let me play all these 2/5s down in half steps, like that's an exercise, and I'll do that, sure. Like a line or something down or up in half steps, or around the down or up in the whatever it's called, serial fourths. I think you got to find applications. Here's a great example. Giant steps, right? It's kind of exercisey. I would much rather play countdown, 26/2, satellite. My students already know this, but I would much rather play those because it's like more of like a practical use of a pattern for improvisation, right? Or a harmonic pattern. My favorite way to work on harmony is to write at the piano, and then from there, if I'm struggling, I write a tune that uses that thing. So that might be, you know, I have a tune, the first tune on my first record, it's called Alternate Agenda. That tune came from me trying to learn the difference between a melodic minor and a Dorian minor, right? So the first half of the tune is modes of the melodic minor. Second half of the tune is modes of is Dorian, and then the bridge is learning about how to play slash chords, like diminished slash chords over the diminished, rather, is what I mean. So that's what I do. I find musical situations to actually work on those things. Anyway, so that's that. Good question. Are people ever turning a profit with albums these days? Are they sacrificing money to have that artistic fulfillment? Yes, they are, most of the time. I was reading what like kind of like the industry standard. Obviously, if you don't know, I also run a record label. So what the industry standard is for like indie labels of like having a small release be successful, and they say like it starts to become profitable at 125 million streams. And I would venture to say I have never seen a jazz album with 125 million streams. There could be some, I haven't looked extensively, but 125 million streams is what they say. And I wouldn't say that necessarily everyone is losing money all the time on all of their projects. I would say that having an album and making that investment allows you to be booked in a variety of ways, both as, you know, an educator, as a performer, as a composer, as, you know, people buying the CD. Like there's a lot of revenue streams that come out of making an album that don't have anything to do with the actual streaming or sales itself. And if you're not, so it's kind of like it's a cycle of like, if you're not putting out records, you're not in the press, so then you don't get booked, right? Or the opposite. You got to put out records so that people in the press and industry notice that you still are alive and doing this. and then to help you have more awareness, to allow you to get booked, to allow you to do more things. So the thing is, like, yeah, you're not making a ton of money putting on a record, but at the same time, if you don't do it, you're kind of invisible, in the eyes of the industry. If you're not sending stuff out to radio, if you're not sending out to the press and critics, like, you aren't there. You might be known, you might even have a huge audience, but you might not be known beyond that within the industry. And if you're not known, you can't get booked. Like, lots of people knew who Snarky Puppy was, but they weren't getting booked on major festivals until they won a Grammy, right? So until you get that traditional stamp, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they've been here the whole time. But here they are, you know what I mean? So you got to play the game. I mean, you can also decide not to play the game, but you can't go in the middle, Let's see. Kevin, wish for your kids the musical life, but not necessarily professional performing. That would be their choice. Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely want them to, explore music as some form of enjoyment, but they don't have to be a musician. That's a different choice, Trombone Hub, did you get to spend some time studying with Barry Harris? So yeah, he came to Juilliard while I was at Juilliard. That was the most time I've spent with Barry Harris, is when he came. I still have this recording of the masterclass. He taught us. We went through Cherokee really, really fast, and he taught everyone a line. He had this whole saying about it too, a series of vocabulary across the different parts of the tune. And I'd have to go back and find it. I wrote it down somewhere also, but it was super helpful in getting inside the language of bebop. And he was talking about all kinds of things. He's like the master of bebop harmony. So I would highly recommend, if you don't know who Barry Harris is, that you should go on YouTube and watch his master classes, because he talks about a lot of things. He's very opinionated, which is great, but he's great educator, very great educator. He runs his own thing in New York, classes, obviously not right this second, but he was. And anyway, so he's really great. So check him out if you don't know him. That's for sure. He's really a wealth of knowledge. That's for sure. Brian, what do you think? I can't really answer this question. He asks, what do you think about when you're playing over slash chords? The only way I can really answer it is what is that sound? And then I play that sound, because there's an infinite number of slash chords. Not infinite, but there's so many. Any two triads you put together make its own hexatonic or pentatonic if they share one note. So I can't really answer that for you. Okay, it's almost 1:00. I've got another appointment in 5 minutes, so I'm going to leave you all for the weekend. I hope you had a wonderful Friday. Thanks for being here, and we will catch you next week. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for asking questions.